Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Tuesday, July 7th, 2026, and today we are going to discuss that super El Nino that the weather nerds keep talking about. We'll talk about when pathways get out of hand, and I'll take you to the field with me to discuss a certain someone or something. Okay, it's an interplant, but it'll be fun, so let's do it. All right, everyone, welcome to Till Tuesday, your weekly reminder that you can get living soil compost and potting mixes from the Bonafide Nerds over there at Tilt Soil. Check out Nathan on the Composter Podcast, Season 4, Episode 3, or head to tiltsoil.com to learn more. I hope your Tuesdays have gone well so far. By the time you hear that, it should be mostly over, so that's good if it's just not your Tuesday. Also, here's some quick thoughts on the U.S. men's national team game from me. All right, tough loss, but couldn't be more proud of the boys. Can't wait for 4 years. They've inspired a nation. We have record-breaking signups for fall soccer. Couldn't be happier. Very proud of them. Go USA. Yep. Okay, so before we jump in, one thing that is always a goal for us is to find ways to make this show better for you all. I don't have an ego about it, so tell us in the comments or preferably on the Patreon page. There's a post up over there for you. How could we improve this show for you? Should it be longer, shorter, nerdier, more detailed, less? I know you all love the in the field stuff, so we're trying to do more of that, but what else can we do? Feel free to leave a comment, but like I said, there is a post over there at Patreon you can comment on as well, and obviously, if you invest in the show, your opinion matters a great deal to us, so we will pay a lot of attention to that. We thank you for that feedback, and if you're not too sure and want to just think on it, that's fine too. At some point, we will have a survey I may ask you kindly to fill out for us so we can figure out how better to serve you. Our goal is to just get as much good growing information out there into the world in a free and accessible way as we possibly can. So how can we better do that for you? Be selfish. No wrong answers there. Also, speaking of this show, it will be live again tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern here on the old YouTube channel, which is always fun. Can't wait for that. And as always, speaking of personal favorite parts of the show, we want to see what you all are up to. Let us know, or better yet, upload a 20-second farm video clip to Dropbox or Drive and share that with Farmer Mike at no-tillgrowers.com. Always love seeing those. Okay, so El Nino, how's that for a transition? Has been in the news lately, so I thought we'd talk about what the heck it is. Essentially, when sea surface temperatures in the Pacific Ocean along the equator rise well above normal temperatures, that has a large-scale effect on weather across the globe. Specifically, temperatures go up at least 0.9 degrees Fahrenheit or 0.5 degrees Celsius over their historic average for 3 months in a row, and we call this change that sailors have been observing for hundreds of years or more El Nino. But that's not like the Olympics or the World Cup, where it just comes like every 4 years. El Nino is a scientific designation for when those temperature changes happen, which is about every 2 to 7 years. There was one just a couple years ago. In South America and the western U.S., the results are more intense storms, often flooding and intense wind events. However, on the opposite side of the ocean in Australia and Southeast Asia, you get droughts and wildfires. Often in the southern U.S., it's wetter and stormier, and in the northern U.S., it's drier. In England, well, it's kind of a crapshoot. And El Nino can mean basically anything. Sorry. Now, why are we talking about it? Well, this year's El Nino could be one of the strongest on record, being branded as a super El Nino or mega El Nino. Some are even calling it Godzilla El Nino as well, because clearly it's nerds who run this naming stuff. But anyway, this El Nino event could be big, like real big. This is because the baseline temperatures I mentioned above for designating said El Nino in the ocean could be tripled this year. This El Nino could be 3 times the fun, in other words. Now, again, this event most aggressively affects coastal regions along the Pacific, floods in some areas and droughts and wildfires in others, but not exclusively. El Nino notably doesn't generally lead to bigger hurricanes, for instance, though sometimes it can lead to bigger storms and hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico. There will be some knock-on effects throughout the world, of course, not only as the weather changes, but as food supplies change as a result, droughts, floods, and wildfires being notoriously hard growing conditions. So if I'm in one of those coastal regions as a grower, what am I doing to prepare or think about? Well, if you're in a drought and or wildfire prone region, make sure you have your water management plan established. That includes both fixing and optimizing existing irrigation, but also water storage. Although who knows how much this event or any future El Nino event will affect a specific area. It's a good reminder / excuse to put your head down and finally invest time and money into those things. Remember, people who will be most affected by this starting now through the early winter El Niños typically peak around Christmas, which is when those in the south and southern hemisphere are doing the majority of their production. So droughts and wildfires will be a particular problem for them. A good wildfire action plan never hurts in arid climates, but this El Nino should serve as a good reminder to go ahead and get that together too. In regions where rain could really hit, how would you all protect yourself from flooding or excessive rainfall? If you're building new gardens, I would definitely avoid floodplains. I mean, I would always avoid floodplains if I could these days, but definitely right now, if you have low-lying barns, make sure anything that could get spilled into the water in like a flood or a small flood, and thus into the ground, like gas, oil, any sort of, chemicals that you may be keeping around, are off the ground and out of the risk zone. That's an easy thing to do that can save a boatload of pollution, and good advice in general. You don't really want that stuff floating around your farm. If you have no choice, you're in an area capable of flooding, a good flood action plan, maybe like, a cute little life raft maybe, and some backup water and food supply would be a good investment. Again, this is one of those things that El Nino or not, it's a good idea. May as well use the El Nino as an excuse. Longer term, there are a million things we can be doing on a small scale, the stuff that we talk about on this podcast, that could help mitigate huge climate changes. Things like, better forest management, controlled burns, water management, etc. But it's also good for us to just be ready in general. Then, of course, there's all the soil stuff that helps with heavy rainfalls and that sort of stuff. It's also good for us to just be ready in general. Success favors the prepared mind. Safety favors the prepared farm. Louis Pasteur said that, just not in so many words. Anyway, that's the gist. Is there anything else I should have included there, weather nerds? There's lots of effects from El Nino that I just probably didn't get into, but let me know. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, pathways that just won't stay in the paths. Rascally things. BRB.
Farmer Claire Coleman here from the Winter Growers Podcast. Did you know that I also founded Real Farmer Care, a nonprofit that supports farmer well-being? From my own experiences farming, I knew firsthand that this type of support was missing from ag, so I decided to do something about it. As of today, there are over 500 farmer recipients of a $100 self-care award, with more applying daily. If you'd like to help, each $100 donated supports one new farmer. Visit realfarmercare.com to donate and learn more. Again, that's realfarmercare.com.
A quick and loving reminder that if you, the listener or viewer, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere that questions come in, but I will always get to those Patreon questions. Now, today's Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Bonnie at Montana Orto Flower Farm, who writes, quote, I grow cut flowers on 1/4 acre and have horsetail invading my rows and pathways. Pathways I thought to cover with cardboard, wood chips, grass clippings. I am about to plant out for the season in the rows, and all I see is horsetail coming up everywhere. I read that upping nitrogen would make it inhospitable and constant cutting back, similar to thistle, but with these seedlings going in, this would be tricky. The stuff is a nightmare. Any help with tips to control or eradicate it would be most welcome. Thank you, end quote. All right, so thank you, Bonnie, and bummer about the horsetail. I know that's a tough one. Bonnie wouldn't have known this when they wrote this question, but I've done 2 recent episodes, in fact, on horsetail, so we will link those in the show notes to watch back. The TLDR on horsetail is that you have to starve the roots and not chop them up and spread them out, like obviously, so preferably no tilling unless you are also going to immediately tarp them or mulch them very heavily over top. So anyway, yes, your instinct to mulch them heavily, starting with mulch paper or cardboard, followed by another layer of mulch like wood chips, is a reasonable place to start. The challenge, of course, with pathways is that the roots will find their way into the nearby beds, and this goes as well for things like Johnson grass, Bermuda grass, etc. So you will need to have a good cultivation strategy for the beds as well, especially in the worst areas, and that may mean taking a year to really get those beds under control and not directly seeding into the worst areas. So cultivate early and often, cutting the plant down as low as you can, and absolutely do not let them sporulate, which is the other way horsetail spreads, besides the roots, Of course, mulching your beds will likewise help, but horsetail can find its way into and through compost mulches, so that weed barrier, the cardboard or mulch paper or whatever, will be the key there. If you could tarp that area for a while before starting the mulching process, even better, but that's not always possible. Now, when and if pathways go haywire and stuff like horsetail, but anything really, starts to grow there, then at least for that season, treat it like living pathways. Mow it really low to the ground, but not so low that you see the soil, and keep the edges clean with either a stirrup hoe or an edger. If I have a particularly aggressive weed around my paths like Bermuda grass, then I will use a little hook hoe to try and pull some of the root up and remove it as best I can. In my experience with fast succession crops like lettuce at least, path plants don't creep too much if managed well. That can be a slightly different story with flowers that are much slower. Then next year you can always develop a better strategy, but what I like about living pathways
is that they can just as well be a strategy for weed management as they can be a good option for triage when you don't have the time and energy to deal with the invasives there. Like if stuff gets wild, you just mow it and hang out. For so long, I used to think of that as a sort of a failure of an approach. If it got to the point that I was, mowing pathways, then I felt like I was failing. Then I realized one day, oh, it's easier to not fight the wildness and instead just work with it. And so that's kind of also around the same time that I just started embracing living pathways. Life has been significantly easier since then. So anyway, hopefully that helps for both horsetail and anything else that might come up for you in your pathways or around your beds. Just stay on top of it and get a good plan together to manage it for next spring. What do you all think? Let us know. And otherwise, we're going to take one last quick break. When we come back, let's head out to the field and visit about a classic but tricky interplant. Be right back.
Oh, welcome to Northgard Farm, the retirement vision and business my wife and I have dreamt about for decades, which is way too long. Timing is funny with an irrigation show on Wednesday, our hottest day of the year so far. We set 30-foot of casing. Jesse, we love you. Stay cool, stay focused.
Hey, Farmer Jesse, coming at you from the Overthinking and Underprepared Homestead. We are working on getting our garden set up. We've been on this property for about 2 years now. This is going to be our third season, and we are really looking forward to actually getting a decent crop out of it all. Thanks for everything you do with the podcast. Bye.
All right, so we're going to head out to the field in this third segment, but I should say that I don't know how incredibly fun this will be for the podcast listeners, per usual. I think in the moment when I'm shooting these in the field, I'm doing a good job of that, and then I watch it back. So and I can tell this is probably not that fun to listen to. So I try, and I hope it's not worthless to you podcast listeners, but it's here on YouTube if you want to watch it, and Mike will put this up later as a short on our Instagram and on our YouTube page. Otherwise, be in the field. Go.
Okay, got some crimson clover and some white chia seed. I'm excited about this because it's super small seed, but that isn't at all what I'm going to talk to you about today. I'm going to go out and look at this interplanting that I like to do and that I did recently, and that may be one that you all can use. We'll see. First though, I have to put the chia seed and the white clover into the cooler so that they will not get eaten by bugs or animals or whatever heads you put chia on. All right, now I started this interplant about a month ago, and it's kind of a risky interplant in as much as if you do it at the wrong times, the lettuce won't succeed. So you're kind of looking at it here. And we've gotten lucky this last month of it being cooler, but if it had been really hot the last month, this would have been hard to have succeed. Basically, all this is lettuce transplanted on the side of peppers and tomatoes that you can see over there. And the idea being that we want to utilize this space on the side while the peppers are loading up, right? But they're not producing yet, which means this space on the side is just being wasted. Same with the tomatoes. So you want to utilize that for something. And in this case, I put it Salanova, per usual. That's our lettuce mixed with some other different varieties in there, some Muir and others. We planted that about a month ago, just after we'd transplanted all these peppers and etc. And the challenge with that, like I said, if June had been really hot, this wouldn't have worked. However, if these had been facing the other direction, because the sun comes like straight up over top of these, so these get sunlight all day. If these had been facing the other direction, they would have gotten a little shade or a little more shade from these. But they didn't quite get that. It's a little bit of a risky interplanting. The better thing to do in this situation is probably plant beets or something here that can take the heat a little bit more. The lettuce isn't ideal for that, but I've been doing this one for years, and it's a really, really good use of this space. And it's one of the reasons I don't love the burlap, right? We'll talk about burlap in another video, but that burlap right there prevents me from having anything on the side of those peppers. So it's just kind of a waste of space, in my opinion. Like, this is a much better use of space, both profitability-wise and photosynthesis-wise, than that. Yeah, and I should also say it's like really hard to shade these, right? Because you don't want to shade the peppers and tomatoes while they're coming along, but you definitely will need a little bit of shade for those lettuces. And you also can't mist the lettuce because it's around all these tomatoes and peppers. So if you mist it, the leaves on the peppers and tomatoes are going to stay wet, and that's going to be like an invitation to disease, which is probably my least favorite invitation to send. Yeah, so that's the idea. You're just transplanting one crop on the side of those tomatoes and then just trying to get extra food, extra money out of that space. Let me know whatever questions you all have, and I will try and tackle them later. You rock.
All right, I hope, as always, that you enjoyed that little field session. Trying to do more of those every week, at least during the growing season, because why the heck not? Anyway, I think that rounds out this Till Tuesday. Don't forget, No Till Growers is a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out as well. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors, and if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and my wife Hannah for absolutely everything in the world. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support this work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of July, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to Nerd, or N-E-R capital D. Nerd. Shouts, Nerd. And we will keep our story going for Nerd. So remember how our plant breeder was, walking through the grape tomato patch one evening, drinking a glass of natural wine, probably something imported by my buddies over there at Jenny and Francois, and she spills it on a plant. Well, not just any plant, her favorite candidate for the best tasting grape tomato plant. And although she worries it may damage the plant or something, to be honest, she mostly forgets about it, goes into her house, pours the rest of the wine, saves her notes, and then goes to sleep. The next morning, she gets up before dawn and notices something peculiar in the field. The field is, well, it's kind of glowing. What is happening? Well, that is for tomorrow. Actually, it'll be for Thursday because tomorrow is the live. But anyway, that's for Thursday on the Grape Escape. Lots of good grape puns to work with this week. Anyway, thanks for watching and or listening. We'll see you tomorrow live. Bye.